You hear that? That's not just a Toyota truck. That's the sound of no telling what you'll find next. So why would you ever take a tour when you could take a detour? Toyota trucks.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, medical, or mental health advice. The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the podcast and are not intended to malign any religion, group, club, organization, business, individual, anyone, or anything.
I'm Sarah Edmondson.
And I'm Anthony Nippy Ames, and this is A Little Bit Culty.
We woke up from a cult, and that journey was captured in The Vow on HBO and in my memoir, Scarred.
Now, in this podcast, we break down the shame and secrets that make these experiences so destructive with honest conversations on how seemingly benign groups can cross into the cultiverse and how to spot and recover from trouble if it happens to you.
Each week, we bring in experts, survivors, and whistleblowers to explore red flags, resilience, and even share a few laughs, because sometimes you gotta laugh.
Subscribe to our Patreon for early and ad-free listening, some live Q&A, and exclusive content at patreon.com/alittlebitculty.
Welcome to Season 8 of A Little Bit Culty. Welcome back, everyone, to Season 8 of A Little Bit Culty.
Season 8.
Today, we are unpacking one of the culty stories that has kept us up at night. Today, we are diving into the chilling case of Kat Torres, a Brazilian model turned Instagram wellness guru who went from promising empowerment to orchestrating a horrifying web of grooming, coercion, and human trafficking.
Not so sure how promising she was, but with over 1 million followers, Torres used her spiritual persona and social media savvy to lure vulnerable women to the United States, only to trap them in a nightmare of forced sex work, confiscated passports, and psychological control. From claiming to hear the voice to enforcing degrading rules, her tactics scream cult leader playbook with a modern digital twist.
Joining us today is Chico Felitti, the investigative journalist behind Wondery's gripping podcast, Don't Cross Kat, which exposes Kat's rise and fall and the survivors who fought back. Chico's reporting, sparked by a tip about missing women, uncovered a story of exploitation that led to Torres' 2024 conviction and an 8-year prison sentence.
We'll explore how this case mirrors classic cult dynamics, the role of social media in amplifying her power, and what it tells us about the dangers lurking behind influencer facades.
I personally found this episode to be fascinating. We hope that you do too.
Totally agree. Enjoy.
Chico, welcome to A Little Bit Culty.
Thanks for having me.
So we really loved Don't Cross Kat on Wondery, and we obviously saw a lot of parallels between the journey of Kat's victims and what we went through and some of our members of NXIVM went through. Tell us a little bit about your story and how you heard about this and what drew you to the Kat Torres debacle.
So I'm a person who's chronically online. I've been so for 20-something years. I've always covered the internet for BuzzFeed and written books about it. And the first time I heard about Kat Torres was about 6 years ago, I want to say 7 years ago. And people told me, hey, there's this influencer and she's beautiful and she's blonde and she made it in America. And apparently some young girls in Brazil are really into her. So I checked her profile out and was like, okay, she's beautiful, she's blonde, she's a former model, she's living in the US, she's doing a lot of shopping, she's sporting a rich life in the US. But that was unremarkable at first. I was like, yeah, we got plenty of those. Brazil is a country obsessed with internet and influencers. We have the largest rate of influencers in the world and people, one of the largest usages of internet as well per person. So that was quite unremarkable when I saw her at first. But then a couple of months later, people started tweeting about followers who had gone missing. Apparently, the only thing they shared was they were really into Kat's content and they had disappeared. Apparently, they had traveled to the US to live with Kat, but no one knew it for sure. up to that point. So that's when I started realizing there might be a story there. There might be something other than just a lifestyle influencer, which is what I took her for at first.
What distinctions about what she was doing allowed her to do that, do you think? The fact that she was simply one of the few people that were probably doing that, or what allowed her to do that, in your opinion?
I think she's a very charismatic person and she has a magnetic personality. So she used that at first to draw people to her profile and to get them to buy her products and get people to buy her courses. But then again, she was also connected to something that is very relevant in Brazil and all of Latin America, which is the American dream. She had made it in America, and it's hard to define to someone who lives in America how big that is for people in Brazil. I mean, it's a big common dream of moving to America and getting rich and getting a level of wealth one would not be able to amass in Brazil. So I guess she was playing with the American dream to the right audience, which was young, poor Brazilian women who dreamt of going to America and living in a big house with a pool and owning a Ferrari and going shopping on Rodeo Drive. So she was playing with both sides. I mean, she was offering her beauty, she was offering her wellness business and her wellness tips, but she was also touching a deeper nerve, which was, I made it in America and I can help you do the same. I can help you achieve wealth in the US.
What was her spiritual shtick? I know she had this voice that she connected with. What do you think it was? Like, how did she package this in a way that was so appealing? Can you tell our listeners a little bit about what she was?
Her marketing.
Yeah, what was her brand?
Yeah.
It's hard to define Kat Torres' brand because it was all over the place. I mean, she would change her tips and her lessons every week. And so she would take something out of a New York Times best-selling book that was quite obvious, like mentalizing, you should have a dream board or something. And the next week she will be like, I talk to aliens because I was gifted. I was born with a voice in my head and I get to talk to Jesus and I get to read people's minds. It was a mishmash. She was mixing all sorts of stuff, like from serious stuff, some Brené Brown there, some self-improvement, and some lunacy. It's hard finding another word for it, which is not lunacy. Her book, which is called A Voz, The Voice in Portuguese, narrates how she was always gifted. She was an X-Men, and she was able to read people's minds, and she was able to talk to Jesus himself, an alien. So it was all over the place. And I guess since the internet, it's so fragmented and it's so hard to catch people's attention, she was throwing many nets. I mean, she would get your attention one way or another. So it was not coherent. It was not cohesive. She did not have a Bible or a guidebook, and she would change her offerings every week. So she was kind of a TikTok of a person. If TikTok became a person, it will be Kat Torres because she was everywhere. She was all over the place. Right. It's even hard to define and to take her seriously because some of the things are so hard to believe in and so ludicrous, to be honest, that it's hard to take it seriously. But the crimes were quite serious.
Yes.
I like the explanation you gave, though, because, being an American, it's not going to appeal to me moving to America for the American dream. But it seems like she was successful in kind of self-assessing, okay, what have I done?
Yeah.
Or what can I pretend to lure people? Like, I'm luring my younger self here.
Yeah, precisely. I think she was playing to herself, a young version of herself in the audience. And she knew what her angst was and what her wishes were when she was 16 or 17, which might be hard to understand for someone like me, a man, or someone who was born in the US.
I want to get into all that psychology and also, her ayahuasca and how she got to where she got to. But just to kind of paint the story for those who don't know it, can you just lead us through sort of the main plot points of, like, you find out that people have gone missing? Is that when you get involved as a reporter?
Yeah, definitely. That's when I start messaging people, DMing people, calling people, and trying to figure out if that was either an internet hoax or was there some truth to it. Turns out there was a lot of truth to it.
And were you working with, I know that the series focuses on the perspective of Patty, the friend of Desiree, who is one of the main girls that goes missing. Are you in touch with these women at this time?
So we do establish a contact with some young ladies in Brasilia, which is Brazil's capital, who were doing a serious armchair detective work. And they were doing it really, they were doing out of their will because they knew some of the girls who went missing. So we did approach them and we did started talking with some frequency. But at this moment, we weren't quite sure yet if the followers had been kidnapped, if they had just gone dark, gone out of social media for choice, whatever had happened there. And it took a while and it took a lot of effort from those armchair detectives for the American police to be involved and the Texas police to go to Kat's house and find out if the girls were there. Because that was unsure. No one knew where those young women were. Not their families, not their mothers, not their fathers. They just vanished. They just disappeared.
That was actually one of the most disturbing things,
scary.
that they were able to do that and that Kat had enough sway to get them to do that. But then also that the police did a wellness check, knocked on the door and asked, "Are you okay?" And that was like the fact that they weren't, I guess, trained in coercive control, or that maybe they weren't like, how was that for you as a reporter to hear that footage or that audio?
At the same time, it's really interesting for a narrative, but it fills me with angst because, I mean, afterwards, you know that they were there in a situation of coercion and they were being explored. But hearing this young women telling the police they were fine and they were there out of their own will and they were just visiting a friend, it's a tough listen. It's hard to listen to that. And that was broadcasted in Brazilian television live. I mean, people were covering this case like crazy in Brazil. It became a really big deal in Brazil.
It's amazing that you're even able to get that audio. I didn't even know they recorded those types of things.
Neither did I, but I counted with the people at Futuro Studios who are really good with American bureaucracy, which I'm not, and they were able to get it. And some of the audio was also recorded by the armchair detectives, by the friends, even young ladies who did not know any of the victims. They were doing some serious investigation, and that's what fascinates me in this specific case. It's one of the few cases I've heard of in which the audience, people on social media, actually helped solving the case. We tend to think of people obsessed with true crimes as paranoid or someone who would try to help the police and would not be successful, but that's not the case. It's the opposite. It was thanks to this young Brazilian women who lived all over the world that the American police, the Texas police, and the FBI got essential information to prove that a crime was happening in Texas, in American soil.
And let's get into that. What was the actual crime? What was going on? What was Kat doing to these women when she got them to the house?
It was really blurred and hard to tell at first because she would just invite some of her followers, her most loyal followers, the ones that paid to have consultations with her every week, sometimes 2-3 times a week. She would invite those closer followers to live with her. And she would claim to one of them that she was depressed and she was having suicidal thoughts. So she needed company. She needed a friend close to her and say, "I'm buying you a ticket to come to the US, to come to Texas and be here by my side." And to the other one, she would say, "You can come here, you can work, you can make some serious money, you can get a rich husband." And to a third follower, there were 3 followers who actually ended up living with her in Texas. To this third follower, she said, "I know you're living in the US, you're not legal here, and you're out of job, so come and work for me. Come and teach yoga for some of my followers, and I'll pay you decently, and you have a good life." So she would appeal differently to each one of her followers that she invited to live with her. But usually it would involve the American dream. It would involve making money in Texas. It would involve marrying a rich man. She would also mention that a lot. She would say, "I can get you a rich man in the US and then you'll be here legal, you get a green card and your life is solved." And she would say that from girls, actual girls, being literal here, who were 15 or 16 years old, and some of them were 25, and they were really young. Some of them were minors. And yeah, that was her lure to bringing followers to live with her in Texas.
And specifically, they were going to be dependent on her.
Yeah, precisely. They were going to be most times illegal in American soil, so they would not count on the police, or they would be afraid of the police. They were all in a bad financial status, they were poor. They were pretty much poor. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the most abusive aspect of it, if you ask me.
How many other women she invited who didn't come? These are just the 3 that came.
Yeah, 3 of them came, and there was a 4th young lady called Letícia Tupinambá, who's just adorable, who actually moved to the US with the intention of living with Kat, but given up after she got to New York City. She had cold feet and she did not, and she's still well and living in the US, and she had all the messages and she could show me the conversations. And some of the girls, I can state that 2 of the 3 girls who live with her were actually afraid of her superpowers. So she would menace those young women by saying, I can destroy your life by using my powers. I can destroy your family. I can put a hoax on you, which is something that might not work to the general audience, but it worked with them. And they claimed that they stayed so long in Kat's house because they were afraid of a jinx. They were afraid of her superpowers as a witch. She defined herself as a witch. So they drank the Kool-Aid, and they did believe that she had superpowers and she might hurt them with the superpowers. So besides admiration they had for her, they were super fans. And the prospect of making a lot of money in America, there was also a real sense of fear. They were afraid of her.
This episode would not be possible without the support of our sponsors. Let's hear what they have to offer. Did you skip over all the ads? We hope you didn't. Thank you to our sponsors, and thank you for listening. Now, let's resume our culty convo. Was there any evidence of her superpowers? Like, was she able to perform any type of ritual or thing that made them think that? Like, that's the part that I'm having a...
Make the quarter disappear.
Yeah, like, did she... How did she demonstrate, other than the alien baths?
I've interviewed people who followed her and she said she dreamt of my mother, and my mother had passed away recently, like 2 months ago, and my mother visited Kat in her dream to talk to me. But that's as far as proof will go. And she was on TV shows claiming she had superpowers, and a famous Brazilian TV host, Amaury Jr., asked her, so if you're able to read minds, why wouldn't you read mine now? Read my mind now. What am I thinking? And it's a very cringe moment. It's very awkward. She laughs and she tries to get out of the conversation. So there was no actual proof. It's not like John of God, which is another Brazilian con artist I've covered and I've written about, which he showed people getting rid of cancer, or he would have people staging fake surgeries in which they would be cured of cancer, and there were public demonstrations and people would get very interested. That's not the case with Kat Torres. There was never 1 second of footage of her doing something miraculous or showing her superpowers. It was all based on her claims. It was all based on what she spoke on her videos on Instagram. So it's very subjective and hard to prove.
She seemed to have a pretty... Like, if I'm going to say there's a superpower to Kat Torres, that it's her savviness with social media and understanding any news, any coverage, I can spin into something positive. And, I think there was one story you told where she was able to get like 300,000 followers in a very short amount of time, just because she was able to do it.
She's quite internet savvy. I mean, she was the one who had the word out that she was going out with Leonardo DiCaprio when she was in Cannes. So, I mean, it shows that she's very good at building a public image. And the same with internet. She starts on the internet not as an influencer. She starts as a meme page. She starts creating memes with her own face for people to share, like really corny memes. But people would share them on Facebook and would start following her. And once she had amassed a large number of followers, a following of 100,000 people, she started showing her face and started selling herself as a wellness influencer. So, I mean, she had studied. She knew what she was doing precisely.
Yeah, we're in the attention era.
Do whatever it takes to get them. Just get their attention.
I wonder how much of her, because it seems like she stole a lot from these different, but you said Brene Brown and a number of different wellness or spiritual thought leaders. I wonder how she learned how to be so manipulative and groom. She definitely, when you look at her actions compared to other cult leaders that we've studied, she follows the playbook in terms of the love bombing and then the isolation and creating dependence and fear, like having these girls in absolute terror. How do you think she got them, or some of them, to strip and eventually become sex workers for her benefit?
I do think she was always offering a bright future. She would always claim that you have to go to this really dark phase for us to get to a bright future. So she would convince these young followers by saying, we're going to have a business together here in the US, but we do need the capital to start this business. And we're going to get the capital by you stripping or by you performing sex work, because I cannot do it since I'm a celebrity. So you have to take one for the team.
My question's similar in that, how calculated was this? Was this, I'm going to get them here, I'm going to do sex working? Or was it, I got them here, what are my options? What's in front of me?
Or do you even know?
Yeah.
I tend to think that she was freestyling all the way, because if we start to focus on her professional life in the US, she wasn't as a successful model as she claimed to be, but she was doing okay. She was doing publicity, she was doing ads, she was taking pictures for brands, and she was making money. And when she starts hanging out with famous people in Los Angeles and going to ayahuasca ceremonies with them, she actually gets to date famous Hollywood directors. So she could have been rich had she wanted to. Had she wanted to marry a really wealthy man in Los Angeles, she had that opportunity and she turned her back to it. So I don't think it was quite about the money itself, because she was not making a fortune by exploring these young Brazilian women in Brazil, in the US. We're talking about $100,000, maybe $200,000, which is not a fortune for someone like her who had love affairs with Russian oligarchs, who could have married someone really wealthy in the US. She could have made more money by other means. So I do tend to think that she was addicted to her power and her influence, and she was just improvising as she could.
How much of that do you think came from her ayahuasca? Because it seemed like that was a turning point in her mental health.
I do think that she faces a lot of trauma. She was abused when she was a kid. She was always used for being beautiful and having she was like a Barbie. So that was really overestimated in Brazil. And she got to many places by being beautiful and model-like. So I do think she carries a certain trauma within, and she acted with those young followers like people had treated her. She treated them, she reproduced the treatment she had gotten from older men in Europe where she lived, and even in Brazil. So I guess she was just trying to teach them how to succeed like she had succeeded, which was not a clear professional way. And I do think that the ayahuasca is a turning point in her life. For people close to her say that she started believing she was a witch and she was powerful and she was able to talk to God, and she had a holy mission after starting drinking the tea, which is holy in Brazil. It's something that is allowed by the law in Brazil. It's a tea made of Amazonian roots and leaves, which is used by native Brazilian people. So it's okay to use it in Brazil. It's legal as long as you belong to those communities. And she clearly did not. And people in LA clearly did not and did recreational usage out of it. And it's a substance that carries some side effects to it. As any substance, it's not 100% safe substance. And some of them have to do with overexert by potentializing some traumas or some mental issues someone might face.
We were in the car discussing it. It seems like because she had kind of an abusive upbringing, I guess, she kind of became the abuser.
Yeah, it seems to be the case.
And played that out.
Do you think that she believed her abilities, or did she know that? And I know we'll never know, but what do you think? Do you think that she knew that she was a liar, or this was a facade?
I think she wasn't aware of that. I think she really believed she was special in many ways, not just the superpowers. I do tend to believe that she thinks she is a supermodel, that she was farther more successful in America than she actually was. There was a drive there. She was very pungent about it and still is. I mean, she had never felt in contradiction. She told me recently, I still speak to her, that she believes her followers will invade the prison in which she is to save her. She thinks that they might destroy a penitentiary and invade the place to save her because they love her and they cannot be without her.
Wow, that's amazing.
Where is she located? Where is she held?
She's in Bangu, which is one of the poorest and most dangerous regions of Rio de Janeiro, which is somewhere, it's really a war zone.
Actually, what I wasn't totally clear on is what's their mistake? How do they end up getting caught? Is it because of the armchair detectives putting it together and contacting the police? How do the police and then I don't know what the portion of the government is that eventually exports her?
Yeah, at first, the police gets hundreds of calls from Brazilian women who are following the case and asking for a wellness check and telling them something's not right. So the American police does a wellness check in their house in Leander, Texas, and these young women claim to be all right. And they say, we're here, we're visiting a friend, all is good, we're not here coerced or anything. But eventually, the Brazilian federal police contacts Desiree's family and Leticia's families, and they are able to prove that their kids, they weren't kids anymore, but their daughters have been missing and were in danger somewhere else in the US. So the Brazilian federal police asked the American federal police to get involved. And by coincidence, also their visas start expiring. So they were caught. It's like Al Capone. He's not caught by the bigger crimes. He's caught by the smaller crimes. So it starts getting a concern of American authorities because Kat is illegal in America, and so are the other women. They're illegal there. So then they are caught by an immigration authority. They're taken to jail. And that's when Desiree realizes she had been trafficked. And that's when she decides to denounce Kat Torres. And that's how the crime is proven. They're both deported. And then Kat Torres gets judged in Brazil for the crimes that took place in the US.
And she got 8 years, is that correct?
Yeah, for one of the victims, for the claims of Desiree's case. And now she's facing a second trial for the cases concerning Leticia's.
Okay, so she may get more time.
Probably so, yeah. I have friends at the public ministry in Brazil, and they say, we're quite sure. I mean, she was considered guilty in the first case. There's a tendency she will be considered guilty in the second case.
I hope so. 8 years doesn't really feel like quite enough to essentially be a pimp. I mean, what she was a pimp.
She was. And the thing is, she's been in jail for almost 3 years now. So we're talking about 5 more years. We're not talking about 8 years from now. So, and Brazilian laws are quite generous to people who are held in custody. So she would not probably face 8 years of prison. Chances are she might be released for this first condemnation in a year or so.
Should I be worried about her putting a curse on my head?
I sure am.
From jail.
No.
Well, you speak to her. What's that like?
Is there any sort of acknowledgement?
Or she still thinks she's innocent?
No acknowledgement whatsoever. She says the victims are all, and pardon my French here, attention-seeking whores. And they were trying to get her fame, and they were trying to get her followers, and they were the actual abusers. Those are her recent claims. I've spoken to her 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
Track.
Should send her an article on Darvo. Is that a term you're aware of in Brazil?
No.
It's a narcissist's playbook, which is deny, attack, and then reverse the victim and offender.
It sounds right. It sounds like she's playing from that playbook.
Absolutely. For you as a journalist, did you have like a different perspective about the internet or social media or influencers by the end of this?
Totally. It was a case that changed my point of view on the internet and social media usage. I do think I've become way more skeptical about it. And the funny thing is, I'm an influencer myself. So I have...
You have a lot of followers.
I do. And I do quite a few ads, more than I wished I did. And I do now recognize rationally there's a level of hypocrisy in it. There's a level of... we're fooling people. Everyone who's on the internet selling something, either that is a lifestyle or a product, is fooling other people. It's not showing the whole truth. It's based on deceit. The social media scheme is all based on deception.
Yeah.
Well, it's such an interesting, Sarah and I have had countless conversations about, the internet, Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff. And, every influencer, like from Gary Vaynerchuk to someone else, is saying, TikTok is the new thing. If you want to scale your business, and it's like this whole kind of like, bro, like we're going to go in it. And that's great. We all want to, create, make a living, even support ourselves doing it. But it invites a whole slew of other things where it's not censored, it's not ethical, there's no checks and balances. We criticize the hell out of it. I criticize the hell out of it sometimes, yet I participate in it because I want to reach people, educate people, and I'm competing with people who are willing to do
whatever it
anything
takes
for attention. So we're in this world right now where attention is the commodity. And normally attention used to be a byproduct of something that you built and did well in. And I'm from a generation of like when, I scored a touchdown in 5th grade and celebrated, my dad said to me, act like you've been there before. And so if I was it was normally based on my merit, not based on, so it seems like people skip the merit, go straight to the attention, and people that are actually building merit who are unwilling to do that are oftentimes the casualty of people who are really good at getting attention, like Kat is. That is her superpower. And I don't have a solution. I just think optically,
it's a good discussion to
that
have.
lends to, a lot of this stuff that can happen. And how do you mitigate it? I don't have an answer.
What do you think? Can we mitigate it?
I mean, I don't have decent answer to it, but I do think that recognizing the issue is a first step. Recognizing that social media is not reality and that we're all being tricked and everyone's playing for your attention and everyone's trying to grab you desperately. Companies and people is the first step to get a little more skeptical about our internet usage and our social media usage, which is, I guess, the takeaway of this case, of this podcast. Should we trust people? Should we follow people who are lying to us all the time?
Even cult podcasts need sponsors, everyone. Check out these must-haves. Sponsor break's done. Now back for more culty stories.
Piggybacking what Nippy just said, I think that is a difference with you is that, your followers come from your merit because of the cases I'm assuming you're handsome as well, but also you've done some great work and people want to know what you're up to. And I wonder if there's any way to I guess that's what the blue check is, to be verified, but you're not being verified for your truth, or it's like, are you verified for being a person versus an honest person? I don't have an answer for that either.
And, I'm assuming we're from a generation where this wasn't always the case, but we're raising a generation, Jonathan hates both, each generation touches on it, where the distinction between reality and the internet is blurred. So then the doom scrolling wasn't really in my life till 10 years ago, but kids that are born now are never really going to know a world unless it's a concerted effort. It's a formative foe.
Their own sense of worth is defined by numbers and by likes and by social media status, which is terrifying, to be honest.
It is terrifying.
Yeah, my youngest was in tears with me last night about somebody that he thought didn't like him. Like one person didn't like him. And I just can only imagine the magnitude of how that could be exponential with social media for these little people is heartbreaking. And then on the flip side, the falseness of feeling seen or special from somebody that, seems to have so much influence and thinking, oh my goodness, I'm okay or loved because somebody like Kat Torres says, I like you, come and live with me.
She's my idol. Some of the people I've interviewed define it as the most special moment in her life when she got a DM from Kat saying, I want to be with you.
Oh,
wow.
It was like meeting Hollywood celebrity. That's how they defined it. It was like meeting my goddess. It was like being called by God. So that is very concerning that we attribute so much relevance and importance to a profile that is showing a very limited version of her own life and very manipulated and very intentional.
It's so scary. How has this particular case changed you? And do you have any particular thoughts or advice for either law enforcement or people in general moving forward?
We're having a big discussion in Brazil right now, which is to moderate internet and moderate big techs and to hold big tech companies accountable for the content that is shared on social media. And I stand completely on the side of the creating laws and creating, as some European countries have done. I do think that it's up to the state to ensure the well-being of the citizens.
Absolutely.
I do think we're living in a digital Old West. That page should be turned. I think that 10 years from now, we should look back and say, hey, do you recall when you could say whatever on the internet? When you could be raised, where you could commit crimes, and people would say, yeah, that's so 2020. That's my hope.
Oh, I just got goosebumps.
Also, there was something quite more personal, which is the podcast that followed Don't Cross Cat, that was published only in Portuguese, produced only in Portuguese, was me finding one of the biggest YouTubers in Brazil who has given up on the internet and had disappeared. So I was able to find her after 5 years of silence. I find her in a small shack in the jungle, and she recognizes my effort. It took me 7 months to find her, and she sits down to talk to me and talks to me for 4 hours and explain why she has decided to isolate herself and to disappear from the internet and the real world. It was such a rich conversation, and I guess it served me for a personal reason. It was somewhat selfish because I was the one having those doubts as well. Should I just give up on the internet? So I try to find this really famous, she had 40 million followers, and I find her in a shack by the jungle, raising a child.
Wow.
No internet, no cell phone, no electricity. And she's a millionaire. So I guess that was also a personal influence of the Kat Torres investigation.
Amazing. And since we do not speak Portuguese until that gets translated, can you summarize why she decided to do that?
Yeah, so she was this very charismatic young girl who was like middle class from a place on the outskirts of Rio. And she was really smart, and she was a feminist. And she was just lovely. I mean, she really influenced a whole generation. But then the internet starts changing, and she starts realizing that people are watching her videos less and less. They're starting to watch like seconds of her video, and everyone wants to comment on everything, and everything starts a big debate without a real conversation. And she says, this is not for me. I'm not feeling well. I'm done with this. And she literally disappears in the top of her success. She's speaking and she's like, no longer here. I'll never publish a video again. I'm gone. And she disappears.
Wow.
Because she says she wants to have real dialogue. And she thinks that the internet is moving toward a direction in which there's no dialogue. It's a bunch of people screaming at a bar, everyone's drunk, everyone's high, and no one's listening to each other. That's how she defines it. And I find it very well defined.
Yeah.
It's opinionaires. Yeah.
Funny that you're saying this now, because 250 something episodes in, and we're just now trying to like go to YouTube. We're just a bit behind. And we're
I do think that YouTube is way more mature than TikTok, for instance. There's a matter of YouTube videos are like half an hour, 40 minutes, 15 minutes. In TikTok, you have to summarize an opinion and train of thought in 30 seconds. That's just not doable.
Yeah.
Conversations do get shallower.
Yeah, they sure do. It's funny. I remember reading 1984 years ago, and it had that term talk speak or double speak or whatever. And I remember thinking, come on, that'll never happen. Like, what newspapers are going to be in that? Like, it wasn't the internet yet. And then I'm like, I remember I see the conversations, I see TikTok, and I'm like, oh my God, there it is.
There it is.
There it is. So I've chosen not to participate. It depends. There's some people who ask serious questions, and I'll give them serious answers, but you miss so much in any exchange on that stuff. You miss tone. You miss
I just don't have the capacity.
You miss pacing. You miss like, where's this person coming from? Do they want a dialogue or do they want a monologue? And you have to be on your phone or computer.
Yeah. Some of our shorts get posted from our social team onto TikTok, but we've never done TikTok. As soon as it came out, I'm like, I'm not doing another thing. I'm too old, and I don't have the capacity to learn a new platform.
Same here.
Yeah. Wow. Well, this has been really fascinating. Such an interesting conversation. Is there anything about cults and coercion or any of the parallels that we didn't talk about that we missed for our audience?
I think we got it all covered.
It did really feel like a little mini cult, a cult of 3 or 4 that some were able to escape from.
Which is peculiar as well. We tend to think of cults like tens or hundreds of followers, and this was a tiny cult. A cult of out of 300,000 followers, she was able to amass 3 or 4 of her most loyal fans to actually be her cult.
The positive of the internet is it helped take her down.
Yeah, that's where it's helpful. If any of those armchair detectives are listening, I want to thank them for their hard work. And thank you for this.
Caring.
Yeah, for caring enough to tell this story. I hope that it reaches the right people, the type of people that might watch, hear your docuseries or this one and go, okay, well, just because someone posts that picture of them on a Ferrari doesn't necessarily mean that they own the Ferrari. Just like basic,
I think people are starting to figure that part out.
Yeah, I hope
if you're
so.
on a Ferrari, you don't own one.
Internet literacy, yeah. We all have to go through a process of internet literacy.
Yeah.
Yes, that's so true. I did a TED Talk about cult literacy. So this is the through line for me here. So thank you. Thank you so much for your time and your journalism.
Sure, thank you.
Chico, thank you so much for your time. I really feel like we could have talked to him for a long time, and hopefully we'll have him back to talk about John of God, a cult that we have heard about for years, but have not yet talked about here on A Little Bit Culty.
Yeah, he seems to have a wealth of knowledge that we didn't even get into. But this was suffice for now because Kat Torres, we got you.
We got you. Please don't put a curse on my head.
Social media, double-edged sword, huh?
Absolutely.
Social media.
Let us know what you think in the comments on Instagram or on Patreon, where we will be unpacking this further. Till next time.
Unpacking.
Circling back.
Unpacking's the term.
Where's your word salad?
It's in my back pocket, bro.
I bet we could find a really good
oh my God.
word salad for Kat Torres.
We should find a Kat Torres word salad.
Till next time.
Sinking down to the depths of the ocean, hanging on to the weight of my love. If I let go of it all, I could leave, but I know I won't.
We hope you're enjoying A Little Bit Culty. If so, please do show us some love. Drop a rating or leave a review. Hit subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/alittlebitculty.
Even better, send this episode to someone who needs it. Maybe they're in a cult. Maybe they're just a little bit susceptible. Or maybe they just love a good story. Spread the word, spread the love. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.
A Little Bit Culty is a Trace 120 production.
Executive produced by Sarah Edmondson and Anthony Nippy Ames in collaboration with producer Will Retherford at Citizens of Sound. Our co-creator is Jess Tardy.
Our production coordinator is Lesli Dinsmore.
Writing by Sandra Nomoto and social media marketing by Eric Swarzinski and Brooke Keene.
Our theme song, Cultivated, is by the artists John Bryant and Nigel Aslan.
Wherever you go, whatever they get into, from chill time to everyday adventures, protect your dog from parasites with Credelio Quattro. For full safety information, side effects, and warnings, visit CredeliaQuattroLabel.com. Consult your vet or call 1-888-545-5973. Ask your vet for Credelio Quattro and visit QuattroDog.com.